Okay, good evening, everybody. Tuesday nights, I always try to feature a very special guest. And we have with us today Rabbi Itzinger. And he is not yet in his place of shlichus, but he and his wife are going to be moving out to a place called Chagrin Falls. Is that how you pronounce it? Chagrin Falls in Ohio. And I thought, well, wouldn't this be fun? Let's get a little backstage, the prequel. What's it like for a young married couple still living in Brooklyn? Where are you living now?
Yeah, this is my Brooklyn basement right over here.
Still in your Brooklyn basement apartment, excited, maybe a little nervous, enthusiastic about going to Chagrin Falls in Ohio. And I'll just tell a little personal note. So Rabbi Itzinger reached out to me and he gave me the chance to participate in the funding. And I was in New York a couple of weeks ago for Razy's L'chaim, and they had the big snowstorm. And I thought, oh man, am I going to get stuck here? And I had a flat tire on my rental car, and I'm like, oh man, I need some divine intervention. So I thought, what can be better than to contribute to his shlichus? I did, and sure enough, I found a guy. I was walking around in Crown Heights because of my event. I'm not supposed to be shoveling snow. So I found a guy with a shovel. I said, can I hire you to shovel out my car? He said, you have to hire me, I'll just do it for you. And the guy came, he shoveled me out. I got out, no problem. My flights were perfectly on time. So we're going to make an appeal at the end if anybody wants to participate in supporting the good rabbi and his wife. But you got to sell us first. So let's get started. When are you moving? When are you going to Chagrin Hills, Ohio?
All right. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. I haven't been in Chicago since I was in Masifta in 2013 and 14. So this is
still cold.
It's still what?
Still cold.
Yeah, I'm sure. So we're moving out. I mean, Ohio's probably just about as cold. We're on the lake, like in Chicago, on Lake Erie. We're moving out we actually have a date. June 1st is when we're moving, which is just before Shavuos. That's when we're moving, but we plan on visiting there. My wife is from nearby, so my wife's parents live nearby. We actually visited there recently, last week, and we plan on being there at Pesach time as well. We're going to start with giving out matzah to some of the people that we already know, or we're going to try and meet some more. That's going to be our first step.
So what is Chagrin Falls? I never even heard of that. What does Chagrin Falls, Ohio look like? Is there any other Jewish infrastructure, any other synagogues, any other Jewish community there? What does Chagrin Falls look like now before you come and brought the message of Chabad to Chagrin Falls?
Okay, so like this, it's a little like village kind of, like sort of like an old style place. It's near Cleveland. It's a village near Cleveland. So the Jewish community of Cleveland is about, like, the religious community is probably about half an hour away. There's some other shluchim closer than that, but right now it doesn't have any Jewish infrastructure. People that live there might be living there because they don't want to, or they're definitely not interested specifically in, or maybe are not interested at all in living near a shul. There's plenty of other more Jewish areas with a lot more. So the answer basically is that there's currently no infrastructure at all. Some people might go from there into Cleveland. There's plenty of other shuls and other Jewish, we might have temples or whatever. But in that area itself, and in the surrounding areas, there's currently nothing. So we're going to be building it all up from the ground.
So you're going to start from scratch. You mentioned that your wife is from nearby. Take us through the story. How long ago did you get married? What was the process that made Chagrin Falls the place for you and your wife to bring the Rebbe's message?
Okay, so we got married in October, so not that long ago, about 4 months ago, and we're going to be moving there in about another 4 months, so about 8 months altogether. So this is near Cleveland, as I mentioned. So my wife is from a city called Solon, Ohio, which is about 10 minutes from Chagrin Falls, and her parents have been living there for 30 plus years. And by now, obviously, well established, with a big building, with a big extension going up as well. But this is an outlying area of there. So the first place we started looking, I'm from England personally, so maybe we would have looked there. But before that, we started looking right in Ohio, looking for a place to go. We both wanted to go on shlichus, and we both wanted to go as soon as we could. So we started looking for this place, which my wife's parents are aware of, and they currently know some families there. They don't know that much, and they haven't had time to focus too much in that area because they have their own city to focus on. But they know of this outlying city; it exists. They have some families that come there to their events and to their preschool. So they think of it as a good place to expand the services.
So have you met with some of the community members in Chagrin Falls, and what's their response been like? What have they said?
We haven't met with, we personally have not met with people who live there. My wife's parents do know people who live there, and they currently interact with them, mostly families that come to their school. We have actually, interesting story, we actually met a Jew, not from there, he lives somewhere else, but we met a Jew in Chagrin Falls. Last week we were there, we were actually looking at a house, and it turns out that the guy showing us the house was Jewish. So we put the phone on him, and he's very excited. He had his bar mitzvah. He actually hadn't had a chance to have his own bar mitzvah because, as he told us, he was dyslexic and he was scared to read in public, and he didn't realize that he could do the bar mitzvah without all that. He was very excited to find out that at 50 years old, 50 something, he could have his bar mitzvah in an empty home with nobody watching. We put tefillin on him, and he was excited. This was on Friday. He texted me again today. He's still very happy about that. So we haven't yet met people from that area. We do have one or two names, or I'd say by now maybe 4 or 5 names of people that we know, but we haven't yet started, as I mentioned. And we do know that they exist, and it's more however many we could find. This is people that nobody's been focusing on until now, sort of falling through the cracks between some of the other shluchim in the area, or they have to come into the woodwork still. Some of the families that we know are there are excited that we're moving, and the rest we're gonna find.
Do you have a rough idea of how many Jews live in Chagrin Falls?
A rough idea. So we don't really, because the area itself, first of all, also expands into some more like rural areas and then into another suburb nearby. It's a few hundred families. It's not massive, but the Rebbe spoke about sending a shliach to a city that doesn't have 10 Jews. So this has 10 Jews, and we're gonna find them.
Okay, so what are some of like your hit the ground running first plans that you think would work, and what guidance have you been given? Like, share with us here, everybody on board, what's the process that someone, young family, young husband and wife, filled with enthusiasm, been looking forward to this your whole life? Is there a guide? Is there a manual that you get? Is somebody guiding you, or they just sort of drop you out there, parachute in, and have at it?
So it's a bit of both, really. I mean, I have a lot of friends who are already on shluchas. Obviously, every situation, even the shliach right next door, could have his own sets of challenges and his own rules. But it does always help, and obviously, the Rebbe always encouraged getting advice from others, and especially other shluchim. So there's WhatsApp groups, and there are groups of young shluchim like ourselves,
like me, young guys like me.
Right, exactly. We could definitely bounce ideas off. I've come to realize that I've gotten this advice, and I've come to give this advice to others, is don't ask everybody for advice, because then you can get overwhelmed. But you can pick a few friends. But again, advice is good. And we have also family. I have a brother-in-law, my wife's brother, who's also similar. He moved to a small city nearby, and he's been there for about 5-6 years, and he's also doing similar. So he's the guy in the most similar situation to us. But overall, so yeah, we definitely been getting advice. There is a good network, I would say, where we're not, just dropped into this. But once we hit the ground, exactly, it's just we hit the ground and we got to figure it out. So as I mentioned, we would like to start with matzah. We're not going to be living there yet, but I feel like if this is our area, we're not going to let the people that we do know not, go without matzah for Pesach. So that's what we're going to start with. And it really is just knocking on doors, meeting people in the street, hanging out, going to places where people hang out, trying to get into homes, which is obviously more challenging with COVID. You can't always just show up unannounced, but a lot of shluchim do that. They'll just go door to door. Wow. And it does take some time to build up. It really does. And the first couple of years could be challenging. Obviously, it's a challenge that we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, and it's a challenge that we're looking for. We're fairly confident, and we're very confident that we could pull this off. But yeah, the first few years, obviously, it does take time, and we're very thankful. Also, we have family right nearby. So some people will go to a city far out, with the closest mikveh could be hours away, and the closest kosher food source could be hours away. We do have the actual narrow area that we're going to. No, there's no infrastructure nearby. There's a lot, and we're even starting out with a few names of families that we know and that know that we're coming. Not everybody's lucky to have that either. So support there is definitely. There's a good network, like I mentioned. But yeah, the idea is we hit the ground running. And what happens after that? Every shliach 30 years after he moves out just looks different. Some are still learning with people one-on-one. Some have big classes, some have big services, some have smaller, some have big buildings, some are more focused on the individual. It really depends, and we're excited to see where this journey is going to take us.
Well, your enthusiasm is infectious and it will certainly serve you well. What are your concerns? What's your biggest fear? What is it that you're most trepidatious about? Not that I want to make you nervous about anything, but just like you're filled with the gung-ho enthusiasm, which is beautiful, and you got the Rebbe's bracha, and you got a plan. What are your concerns?
The concern, I don't know if it's a concern, but the biggest thing is their responsibility. You know, we visited there once, and now we went there again as the first time since we were appointed to shluchim in this area. And every door that you see behind that door, who's there? Is there a Jewish family? If yes, it's my responsibility to meet them. And that's not a fear, because obviously we're guided from above and everything goes how it's supposed to. But we have to do our part. So I would say the responsibility, not as a fear, but as something that's, you know, there, and we have to recognize.
So that's a real beautiful attitude, that you're going to Chagrin Falls, and it's your perspective that you're responsible for every Jew, and even by extension the non-Jews, because the Rebbe's required us to be involved and to bring the Sheva Mitzvahs and so on. So if you could visualize your first 6 months, do you have some, at least a starter kit plan? What do you think that you could accomplish once you're there, you're unpacked, you have your place, and go? You wake up in the morning, you're full of enthusiasm. Give us a rough idea. We understand you're going to have to be flexible, but give us maybe a rough outline of what it would look like.
So I would say, as a personal goal, I would try to make, in the first few weeks, months, whatever it is, as many individual interactions. I don't know if I can expect to have an event with hundreds of people. As many individual interactions as possible, preferably to learn with people. It could be a good anchor if you could set up within the first however many weeks, however many people you can that you're going to learn with weekly, let's say. So that's a connection, and you're learning with someone, which is the best connection you can do. You can obviously put on tefillin with them or whatever it is, and then try and invite them and engage them more. So I would say, as a personal goal, as many individual interactions as I can. Meet as many new Jews, or meet with the ones that we know of already, and try set up learning sessions, or just meeting them, anything like that, and try push it as far as we can go. And obviously, from those individual interactions, that's how you build a community, but that's a longer term plan.
Sure. So it's great. You and your wife sound like you're very excited about it. We're excited for you. Okay, so listen, everybody. There's a young couple here. They want to go out and do the Rebbe's message. If somebody wants to participate, how can they? Do you have a website already? Is there some way that people can be supportive? What do they do? Or is there something you can WhatsApp to me and I could forward it to everybody? What's the simplest way?
Yeah, sure. I have first of all, thank you to anyone who wants to help us out. It's the first couple of years, really, or we're trying to pull together enough to get us through the first 2 years, let's say, until we can meet enough people. So it would definitely go a very long way. More than, I mean, it's always good to get stuck up, but more than when you're giving it to an established institution. Obviously, your own local institutions come first, but after that, someone who's starting out could really have a bigger impact. So yeah, I can send you. We have a website.
Yeah, so please WhatsApp me, any links for PayPal or Zelle, or all the different ways, and I'm happy to pass it on. And maybe somebody wants to be a participant in getting this started. So we want to wish you tremendous hatzlacha, great success. Your enthusiasm is great, and you got that gung-ho attitude, which is the most important thing, and you got the Rebbe's bracha, and you got sincerity, and you got family on your side, and we're confident that you're going to make a great Kiddush Hashem in Chagrin Hills and prepare it for the coming of Mashiach. So thank you for joining us. I know it's late there in New York, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, wife, for sharing you with us for some time. We wish you hatzlacha, and I'll send out the recording of tonight's interview, as well as some links and websites, or any ways if anybody wants to be successful. Remember, tomorrow night, everybody, 8:30, we're learning mimer. We're starting a new mimer tomorrow night, Wednesday nights. Remember, 8:30. I'll send out the reminder, and we'll see you. Rabbi Itzinger, hatzlacha to you and your family, and we'll look forward to hearing great reports from Chagrin Hills. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Hatzlacha.